Roswell's UFO can't be replicated by reverse engineering. Defense contractors get millions knowing the task isn't possible. August 10, 2019. UFO/UFO researcher Anthony Bragalia presents us with a very interesting point about the reverse engineering of alien ships, which should be read by all those interested in the phenomena. Roswell UFO cannot be reverse engineered. The crash of an unknown vehicle and its drivers in early July 1947 near Roswell, New Mexico, is still surrounded by many secrets. Perhaps the most disturbing of these secrets is financial fraud and false hope. These secrets are revealed here and now. Defense Department contractors tasked with figuring out how extraterrestrial ships operate, and are supposedly conducting reverse engineering, are taking money to do so, knowing that they can never do so. These Department of Defense contractors are well aware that they are being paid to produce results, yet have found only minimal value in the study of the ship found near Roswell. Even though decades have passed, this is backed by testimony from first-hand right-base witnesses, statements by a former director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, the analysis of two eminent scientific writers, and the actions of a U.S. Senate member. It is clear that while the ship's technical studies continue over the years, they are based on misguided efforts and wasted expenses. And these efforts and expenditures are being exploited for profit significantly by these contractors. They continue to wrap their black budget payers with regress reports on a project for which, by its very nature, progress can never be made. The ship's witnesses didn't see, says much. Roswell's UFO can't be replicated by reverse engineering. Defense contractors get millions knowing the task isn't possible. When Sergeant Bill Ennis, a jet propulsion engineer from Wright Field, later Wright-Patterson Air Base of 1947, saw the crashed aircraft when it was brought to Wright. He was a flight engineer in the hangar to which the vessel was initially taken, but it took many years to tell researchers this after misreporting them. When originally found by researchers Tom Carey and Don Schmidt, Ennis laughing and scornfully said that nothing happened and that it was just a weather balloon. A few years later, he turned around in a difficult part of his life, recognizing his obligation to truth and history. He told the researchers that he actually saw the ship when it was at the base, but that although he saw the whole thing, he couldn't see an engine or propulsion system. Ennis told researchers Carey and Schmidt that he was introducing himself about his involvement in Wright and the crash that hit his base. He said, "After all these years, I still don't know how she flew." He wanted assurances that they would try to find out what made her fly before I died. They promised they would surely try. The years went by, and Ennis also wondered what drove the damn thing if there was no power system. And the question, what did she fly, is fundamental in coming to the conclusion that the answer to that question is unknowable by its very nature. Such material from an extremely advanced civilization could not be fully understandable in our time, because it is from a future time. Ennis is not alone in noticing the lack of a power system. Those who said they saw the ship never mentioned that they had observed an onboard engine or propulsion system. If there are none, what are contractors studying? If a power system, engine, fuel or propulsion system is not noticeable, what causes it to move? The project is a museum piece. The truth is that the ship itself simply remains a museum piece in a shop window. In a sense, a relic of the future. It is a piece of curiosity that is technically inexplicable today as it was when it was first discovered. We still have no idea how this works. While some understanding of building materials, some of the debris such as memory metal debris, see below, has been achieved, there has been virtually no technically actionable progress in understanding the system dynamics of the ship found in desert. Former Director of Defense Intelligence Agency DIAO progress in reverse engineering of ET spacecraft. Roswell's UFO can't be replicated by reverse engineering. Defense contractors get millions knowing the task isn't possible. To Navy Admiral Tom Wilson, former DIA director. The idea that it has been learned is supported by what was recently reported in the leaked document of Rick Davis. A dialogue allegedly took place on September 16, 2002 between the famous astrophysicist Dr. Eric W. Davis, Professor Baylor, consultant Department of Defense, specializing in propulsion, and Admiral Tom Wilson, Director of Defense Intelligence Agency from 1999 to 2002. The transcript of this dialogue came up recently and can be read by clicking here. Note that Wilson was speaking with Davis 4 months after retiring from DIA. If the copy of this dialogue is true, it is explosive in what it means to man. "We were visited by creatures that fell to Earth, and we have the ship that brought them here," leaked to researchers, including UFO writer and researcher Grant Cameron, and then appearing on the net. The note's authenticity has not been confirmed, as Wilson and Davis refuse to comment. In these discussions, Admiral Wilson reports the involvement of defense contractors in an ET spacecraft reverse engineering attempt program. Wilson reportedly talks about a meeting he had with the program director, security director, and corporate lawyer with a major defense contractor with access to a knowledge of Roswell's program. Wilson extracted some details from them, including that a ship not made by man or human hands was in fact recovered in the past. Somehow, researchers commenting on Davis' documents have forgotten or failed to comment on an extremely important detail, very revealing. Wilson also drew from the Defense Insider something else. Wilson said of their efforts that they have tried to understand and exploit technology for years and years, with little or no success. Things of the future are not made for today. Two notable futurists, Alvin Toffler and Sir Arthur C. Clarke, instruct us with their insights into why such reverse engineering of otherworldly ships and time is not likely. The late Alvin Toffler was the author of the 1970 seminal book, Future Shock. Future Shock. Toffler has introduced such a profound concept that its implications continue to be felt as we continue our march through time. Future shock is a condition of physical distress and mental disorientation caused by the inability to cope with sudden changes. As Toffler so succinctly states, it is an individual and social psychological state that is harmful. It is induced when a lot of change is introduced in a very short time. I had a brief email correspondence with Toffler a few years before he died. We discuss ETs, contact and hypothetically the reverse engineering of captured alien ships. Toffler felt that the technical gulf between extraterrestrials and humans would necessarily have to be very large. So big would it be like a dog trying to understand general relativity theory. He mentioned that because we are human, we have human limitations. These human limitations do not apply to aliens. Its limitations are clearly smaller than ours. Toffler had previously suggested that there may be certain cultural and even biological limits to our ability to absorb such complex information and insights. Too much technology that is suddenly and very quickly received, and that is very different, puts much of a demand on our ability to perceive and understand. This means that things done in another world, coming from our future and our present, may even instill cognitive dissonance, as there may not be a frame of reference to make any possible comparison. This is very similar to what the late British science writer Arthur Clarke 2001, A Space Odyssey stated: any technology, sufficiently advanced, is indistinguishable from magic. Not only would alien spacecraft technology seem magical, but it would indeed be magical, moving by forces unknowable by man. If man cannot discern the difference between magic and technology, he cannot retrace the advanced technologies of an alien spaceship. It would be supernatural, beyond nature as we know it. It's like putting the television into operation at a caveman's abode. He would have no idea how this works. Like the downed alien, it would be magical. Experiencing the alien is, by its very nature, experiencing the future. If they are coming here, rather than us visiting them, they are at an instant advantage. This means that they are both an old race and a future race. For us, its evolution and history and, by extension, its technology go back much longer, but at the same time from the future. It's a paradigm that would make even the wisest brains hurt. Beauty is in simplicity, but this apparent simplicity can hide extreme complexity. I suspect the secret of the records is so simple that we can't understand it. UFOs are often reported to have no rivets, no signs of joining, and because they are completely smooth. If the ship found near Roswell had no engine, fuel, or power system, the simplicity must be confusing forever. The sergeant's testimony, Bill Ennis, and the lack of mention of a propulsion/engine system by any witness to the crashed ship supports its likely simple and infinitely complex technology. Making progress. Not apart from its extraterrestrial nature and its subsequent cover-up. The biggest secret about the Roswell crash is this: private sector contractors who are involved in the Roswell program cannot reverse engineer or reverse construct something that was designed and built by those of the distant future. But they are still receiving huge sums to do the impossible. Of course, these companies do this because they have every interest in continuing to extend their contracts to study the crashed vehicle over the years and overshadow its inability to crack the code of a millennium-made vehicle in our future. They are maintained because they are so well entrenched now in the military-industrial complex and know much more than anyone, so they cannot be left behind. With the advent of constantly evolving generations of advanced instrumentation and diagnostic equipment, these involved contractors may one day find the answer to how the ship flew. If there is a glimmer of hope for any success, they should be maintained. They reinforce the hope of success for the government that pays them for achieving some things over the years that give the illusion of reverse engineering progress. They may have succeeded. Rebuild the shape, surface, dimension and size of the ship. Incorporate our best attempts to replicate some of the metallic building materials of some of the parts memory metals in technologies used today. The memory metals we made, however, are just kids' toy versions of what this alien engineering material can do. And a rudimentary understanding of an engineering material is very different from understanding an engineering system. Knowing what the ship can be composed in part is nothing like knowing how that ship flies. Replicate the outer and inner characteristics of the ship. From the above actions, create a representative model, but not a functional prototype and certainly not a fully functional ship. Test the ship's configuration in wind tunnels and by computer simulation. However, this may be pointless, as these UFOs have been shown to be immune to drag, G-force, and adverse flight conditions, and often present in non-aerodynamic forms. Continually evolve theories about how the ship works. They develop a set of linked ideas to explain how the ship operates. A theory provides a way to explain observations. These explanations are based on assumptions, and these theories and assumptions are based on man's understanding of the universe, the elements, and physics. Not that of aliens. This is not worth decades to defense contractors. None of the above would tell us exactly how the ships of these beings cross the light years needed to reach planet Earth. None of these things would provide for essential aeronautical information to reverse engineer the ship, the driving force, what feeds or energizes the ship and what is its means of propulsion, acting, what initiates the action to get the ship to act and what actions cause the ship to continue operating, navigation and control, which plans, directs and maintains the course of the ship and the route it travels. Manufacturing. Even if someone can design something, it does not mean that it can do something. Our modern abilities to produce something from the distant future, created in another world, would not apply. If manufacturing processes are 100,000 years more advanced than us, it will take a long time to master them. People who promote the fantasy of flying reverse-engineered alien ships don't understand the real-world concept of manufacturing engineering. Manufacturing engineering is the discipline involved in successfully translating technical drawings into viable machines. It deals with ability to do. Turning engineering concepts into real engineering products is very challenging. It is an insurmountable challenge for things done by processes developed by non-terrestrial non-humans. Such beings do things in fundamentally different ways from us. They can produce systems in the weightless space and certainly calculate with entirely different measurement forms from ours. They have access to things necessary to create their vehicles that we do not have. And if the alien ship incorporates any kind of mind-machine interface, as it has been rumored, if thought plays any part in such interstellar transport, then we can never unlock the secrets of how it operates, let alone manufacture those systems. If consciousness interacts with the design system, our consciousness cannot make the ship move. Our brains and our thought processes must be very different from the aliens. Similarly, if the alien craft incorporates any kind of body-machine interface principles, the same applies. Our bodies and our wiring would be totally incompatible to operate systems designed to be thousands or millions of years older than us. The DC Washington insider who tried to hear from Roswell contractors. Roswell's UFO can't be replicated by reverse engineering. Defense contractors get millions knowing the task is impossible. 3. Dick D'Amato. See Richard D'Amato is, by any standard, a classic DC insider. He apparently also knows a lot more about what happened in Roswell than most in Washington, D.C. After attending Cornell and the Fletcher School of Diplomacy, D'Amato earned his Georgetown J.D. He was a professor at the U.S. Naval Academy. Entering the world of politics, it rose rapidly through various compromises. He has served in many high-level U.S. congressional advisory bodies including defense, national security, and international affairs issues and has attained top-secret authorizations. He has been appointed chief advisor and investigator of the U.S. Senate Appropriations Committee. He later became a national security expert for Senate Majority Leader Robert Byrd and a liaison member of the National Security Council. Today, a private consultant, D'Amato remains active in politics in the state of Maryland. The late Dr. Jesse Marcel Jr. had a strange story to tell about Dick D'Amato. Dr. Marcel is the namesake son of Major Jesse Marcel, Army intelligence officer who was the first to reveal the extraterrestrial truth about Roswell. Dr. Marcel says that in 1991, he received a call from D'Amato out of nowhere. D'Amato knew that Marcel had planned to attend a meeting in Washington. He invited Marcel to meet with him to discuss the Roswell event in what D'Amato called the safe room at the Capitol. Dr. Marcel, who as a child saw some ET debris, told D'Amato that this would not be necessary. He had already said all he knew, and that he was not going to say anything he had not said before. But D'Amato explained to Marcel that the fact was that he himself wanted to relate to Marcel something important about the incident of the accident. Marcel agreed to meet. What would this DC insider say to him? Marcel said he was told to meet at the Capitol building, room 228. Marcel indicates that D'Amato greeted him warmly. Marcel then noticed something displayed in the room. D'Amato had prominently placed on his desk a book about Roswell that explained it is an extraterrestrial event. D'Amato pointed to the book and said to Marcel, "This is not fiction." Marcel replied that of course he knew it was not fiction. He then looked at D'Amato and asked directly, "Why doesn't the government tell people?" D'Amato told Marcel that if it was up to him he would. But obviously it is not up to him. He agreed with Marcel that the information needed to be officially disclosed. D'Amato then told Marcel that he knew of cases where UFO were threatened about his involvement in Roswell. He asked if Marcel himself had ever been threatened. When Marcel told him no, D'Amato offered Marcel assistance and protection if something like this happened. D'Amato is known to have had conversations with some researchers, including this author, in which he detailed that there is a black arm of secrecy on the subject of UFOs, and that the money is being secretly appropriated to defense contractors for projects related to Roswell's reverse engineering program. D'Amato indicates that it was such a hidden project that, even with the power of subpoena, he could not penetrate these operations. I would add that these companies are exempt from Freedom of Information requests because they are private entities. D'Amato wanted more details in the 1990s about black budgets and how billions of dollars of unposted taxes were being spent by these contractors. The reason the guardians of these companies, usually retired generals, have shown him nothing is that they have nothing to show for the money they are making. They are not covering up what they are doing. They are covering up what they cannot do. The myth of alien vehicle reproduction. The only people who make such bold claims about the ship's successful reverse engineering are accused of fraud, such as Bob Lazar, Richard Doty, and Corey Goode. They speak of an intact, fully functioning alien spaceship that has been silently reverse engineered and built by humans. These artificial vehicles designed by aliens are capable of manipulating space, time and dimension. Maintain such fantasists. Common sense instructs us that if such extraordinary interstellar ships were actually man-made, then someone is missing the billions boat. Commercial companies would do anything for this technology. This would revolutionize the transportation of humans and the delivery of cargo in ways we cannot imagine. If the military had such things, we would win all wars and fear no conflicts. In view of this, the very idea of being able to completely rebuild now what comes perhaps hundreds of thousands of years from now is not sustainable. If we can really fly like aliens, then NASA's space program has been a cover-up program with lost lives and wasted taxpayer money. Eisenhower predicted all this. Billions of unaccountable dollars spent by the government on private defense support companies are exactly what a former president predicted. Dwight Eisenhower gave the nation a terrible warning about a serious threat to democracy. He called it the military-industrial complex, a formidable union of defense contractors working on secret projects with secret military and intelligence elements. Prescient observation applies directly to the Roswell-related reverse engineering program. Highly secretive, highly entrenched and cunning in obfuscation, these defense contractors have been leading the U.S. government and taxpayers to roam Roswell for money for years. In his last speech to the world as president, Eisenhower hinted that he knew about the secret situation and that he had lost control of these projects. He didn't know what they were doing or, more importantly, didn't do.